Okay, vets, in my experience, C&P exams are not exactly fun, and I'm sure everyone shares the same experience, but it is an opportunity for you to make a difference in your rating. Hopefully, the C&P exam that you're scheduled to go to next is one that you prepared for, or at least prepared your claim for, and you got the right evidence, and you're ready to go. I'm going to give 5 tips today in this video on things that I think can help you not be so concerned about your C&P exam, but maybe prepare you a little bit more so that you will have a little bit more confidence in what you're doing and kind of have a game plan. And I think when you have a game plan, the results you'll have a better outcome. So number one, let's talk about what the actual purpose of a C&P exam is for. I think it's important to know that the C&P exam, you're not there to get fixed by that doctor. That doctor may care about your condition and may care about you, but they're not there to hear about what is going on and to try and give you some sort of remedy. That's difficult for us because, we're going to a doctor and we might, kind of fall into that trap. We're there to help the doctor determine what's going on with our condition, symptoms, how it's service connected, and what the problems are, and validate all of those things that you've submitted to the VA already as evidence, and give their own medical opinion on what is happening so that the VA rater can review it and determine whether or not your condition should be service connected, and if so, what the rating should be. So keep that in mind. That's what they're there for. They're there to give you that medical opinion that the VA is paying them to give. And that medical opinion could be very bad for you if you're not prepared, or it could be very positive for you if you're prepared and you work together with that C&P examiner to make sure that everything's documented properly. So jumping into the next one is, while you're there, just be completely honest. You're there to talk about your condition, and you're there to give them the honest assessment of what's going on. You don't want to do what veterans do, myself included, and kind of downplay everything. Tell them that you're fine, and that you just deal with it. You want to give them like articulable facts that help them understand the nice clear picture of how your VA disability, your disability started, and how it's connected to service, and just how bad it really is, and how it impacts your life. Remember, the VA provides rating criteria based on a bunch of different things, but some of them are frequency, severity, functional impact, and range of motion on some conditions. So be prepared and know what 38 CFR wants the examiner to do. Or if it's a neck or a shoulder condition or a knee, they're going to check range of motion. They're going to pull out that goniometer and they're going to measure that. So be prepared for those things to happen, so that you're not surprised. Don't forget to talk about your worst days. When you go in there, you might be having the best day of your life. And if you are, make sure that they know what your worst day is like. And that's okay. We're typically not at our C&P exam on our worst day. And if we were, we probably would just call in and reschedule it. So make sure that they know that, hey, look, today my range of motion today is feeling better, but on some days I can only get it to here. I can only get it to this point, and make sure that they understand it. If a body part, your I don't know, your elbow, your shoulder, don't just say it hurts, to explain to them like how it, like what it, what hurts about it. Like explain to them, how it affects, how you stand, how you walk. Tell them about any, thing that it slows you down, maybe at work or at school, or whatever it is that you're doing at functions for your kids. How does how does the pain impact your sleep? Those are the things that the examiners want to hear about so that they can document it. And you want to be able to rattle those things off, which is why I think it's very important in order for you to be complete to have notes at your C&P exam. Another thing too is stick to the condition that's being examined. Okay, so stay on task, stay focused, and be specific. They're going to ask you questions. Answer those questions. They have to put an answer down. So make sure that you give them an answer to address whatever it is. Don't bring up other conditions unless, of course, you're going for a secondary connected condition. We don't want to start talking about other things because it won't matter. You want that C&P examiner to document things clearly on your paperwork so that the VA raters can see it. So make sure that your answers are clear and direct. I like to suggest bringing your supporting medical records just in case they don't end up with the C&P examiner for some reason. And I like to bring them so that, hopefully they're already highlighted in the spots that matter to you or that matter to your claim. So you can show them different supporting medical records that help kind of, justify or verify what you're saying. And then, of course, just make sure that you know how your condition is service connected, because they're going to ask you that, and you want that information there documented by your C&P examiner, because if otherwise there could be some ambiguity, and you may not get your condition service connected. You also want to make sure that the impact. And the criteria that is in 38 CFR related to your position or your condition. You want to make sure that you understand, what the criteria says and what your, how it impacts you, and just kind of where your condition's at, so that you already know what your rating should be, so that will help you with articulating the facts of your case. Also, know what evidence is already out there. Know what the C&P examiner is looking at. Your C&P examiner very likely has already looked at some of your service treatment records and any doctor's office visits that you've had with the VA, and anything that you've submitted from your private doctor. They have probably already looked at that. So you want to make sure that you can talk about those things during your exam if they support what you're saying. You want to know what's in there, because they're probably going to ask you a question like, when did those symptoms start? And if you can answer that, it just looks better for you. And it also helps the C&P examiner to report facts more accurately. And obviously, if you have some medical records that say that the symptoms started in 2008, but you don't remember, and you're like, oh, I don't know, like maybe 2013. Well, then you have something that's, the facts aren't exactly the same. So not that it's going to matter too much, but it just looks better for your overall claim. You also want to make sure that, like, you want to jog your memory a little bit and just look back at your old records and understand how your symptoms have progressed. We're all very busy people, and remembering all of the details might be a little difficult, and that's why those records are there to help jog your memory. You also, I put down any past diagnosis or treatments. Explain all those things. Be ready to talk about those things, so that everything that you're talking about is consistent, and you don't have to worry about anything messing up your credibility. And then just the last thing, this is just, words of encouragement. You're going to have bad C&P exams. Everybody does. If you do, don't worry about it. If you get a denial letter or you walk out of there and you don't feel good about it, you can always challenge an inadequate exam. If you think that they didn't do something right, or you felt like, something, happened during the exam that you just don't agree with, and you feel like you need to complain about it, you can reach out to the VA and let them know, and you can get another one rescheduled. Obviously, I'm sure there are some rules on that, and I've never had that experience before. But I'm sure you could call. I'm sure you could call whatever company sent you up for that exam and challenge it. You could call the VA. You can go to a VSO and get some advice on what to do. And then if you do, go through with it and you get your denial letter, and it was denied, and you still feel strongly that they're wrong, you can always submit additional evidence on an appeal. You can do those things to counter an opinion that wasn't favorable for you. You can do a better job of getting additional evidence. I've been through this process for a long time, and I've definitely used the appeals process, and I've learned a lot about why I had denials. And the appeal process is there for you. It sucks that you have to go through that because it just does add more time and stress to your life. But that's what it's there for. So don't be disappointed if you if the C&P exam was bad and your claim gets denied, or it's not the rating that you expected. Get back out there, figure out what evidence you need, read that decision letter, and make it happen. I put in here, one examiner does not decide your claim alone. So, there's going to be, raters are also going to be looking at this thing, and they're going to be looking at all your evidence. So, don't worry about a bad C&P exam. And of course, as always, you can add evidence after the exam if you need to. Maybe there's something you forgot. You can always throw evidence in there. And then at the end of the day, you can appeal it as many times as you want. You just got to follow the rules on that, which I'll do in a different video.